Welcome into another edition of Jungle Juice. It's Sam Gormley and Mick Nelson with you here on a post-Bengals Week 1 loss to the Cleveland Browns. Getting you ready for the Baltimore Ravens. But Mick, first off, how you doing?
I'm doing quite well, Sam. It's just coming from the work end here. We're approaching on a lot of deadlines here, so things are just firing on all cylinders for me right now.
It makes things a lot of fun, right? And at least, though, the best way to describe it is, this for me is, I know, a busy point of the year as well. It is for you. At least we have football, and that at least makes me feel better, even though that our favorite football team on Sunday kind of let us down. But we don't want to get into that just yet. We'll have to get into it in just a few moments. But yeah, not a great performance opening week of the season from the Cincinnati Bengals.
No, honestly, at least on the offense, it was pretty non-fun. Defense looked all right. So, there are some positives, not a whole lot of them to kind of go through, when we're looking back at the Browns game. But, yeah, the way that the offense didn't function on Sunday was more or less of a disappointment.
And that'll definitely be something we'll have to touch on here in a few minutes. We'll also preview the big game it's a huge game now on Sunday because of the performance this past Sunday between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. But first off, Mick, we wanted to hit up some of the big headlines since our last show, which was about 8 days ago. Some of them, it's now, I guess, in this industry, it's classified as old news. So we aren't going to go too deep into it. But then there's a few. I think your number one topic is something that everyone already has a take on. We've talked about it ad nauseum, and that is Joe Burrow signed his extension, 5 years, $275 million. It was the timing of it happened pretty much right at the kickoff of the Chiefs-Lions game. And that's kind of the topic that I wanted to talk about with you, Mick. On purpose or not?
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of lost you in the lag there a little bit. What were you asking?
I was asking, we are dealing with quite a bit of lag on both ends here today. I was asking the Joe Burrow contract. It was set up and released right at the start of the Bengals-Chiefs, of the Chiefs-Lions game. Was that on purpose, or do you think it was just a coincidence that was released to Adam Schefter?
I think it was probably on purpose, and I love it. It was a great timing on the Bengals end to leak that over to Adam Schefter, and I know it pissed off some like NFL analysts, like saying it was like classless or whatever, but who cares? It's how rivalries are supposed to go, right?
Yeah, and that's my thing too with it. Is if roles were reversed and it was the Bengals playing a big game and Patrick Mahomes signed a contract extension or Travis Kelce, those people would have loved it. I don't know that you read too much into it, but it did at least make me chuckle, even if it wasn't on purpose. As far as diving into the details of it, 5 years, $275 million, I think is pretty much right about what we expected.
Yes. Yeah, no, actually, I think when we were like discussing what Burrow's extension would be after the Herbert extension happened, we were like, well, Burrow's probably making $55 million a year, probably put it over 5 years, and boom, you got $275 million. And I think a few of us kind of guessed that's what the contract was going to be. But I'm just so glad that it happened. I really thought this was going to be pushed off until the offseason. It didn't seem like any traction was, there was any traction going on earlier in the training camp phase with the contract extension. But boy, was I wrong, and boy, am I happy that this is finally done, and you can start to finally try to piece together the rest of the extensions that could potentially come their way.
And I think you're leading perfectly into what was the second big headline of this week that was non-Cleveland Browns related. And it's that next extension, and really the next one on deck is the T. Higgins one. And I know it came out pretty much from multiple reporters in the last week. One was, Kelsey Conway from the Cincinnati Enquirer, and the other was Paul Dehner Jr. from The Athletic. and both of them pretty much said, hey, this T. Higgins deal is not going to happen until the offseason, and he's probably going to hit the free agent market. And I know that kind of like blew up to some Bengals fans, but Mick, am I wrong in not even being a little bit surprised that that's what's ending up happening? Or am I in the minority?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. No, I don't think you're in the minority. When you pay a quarterback top dollar, sacrifices are going to have to be made. And especially when it's not the number one wide receiver on the team. You don't see the Chiefs paying for, two top targets. You see them paying for Travis Kelce. They had to get rid of Tyreek Hill to try and compensate for the lack of cap space. And there's other more important areas of the team that you really need to focus on in terms of building the roster together. I'm surprised that the T extension didn't happen. I don't think is going to happen. Maybe you see him get tagged in the offseason.
And see, I don't know that there's even a maybe
I'm not
to
in the
that.
least bit surprised of the news that we.
I think he 100% is. I think he's 100% going to get franchise tagged. I don't think there's any question about that. And here's what wouldn't surprise me is the good old tag and trade. Is that they tag him and then trade him right, towards the top, in those week plus before the draft, and do maybe an un-Bengals-like thing, but a move that is probably smart for teams that want to win and try to pick up. Because here's the thing. I mean, Nick, if we're being honest, T. Higgins, if you can trade him to somebody that gets a year, potentially more, you could potentially swindle a first-round pick. If not, you're looking at a good second-round pick probably for T. Higgins, or a couple of mid and some late. He's going to get a decent haul for because I know that they talk about this every single time. Other than, a handful of teams in the league, he would be a number one wide receiver on just about any team in the NFL. And because of that, I think teams would be willing to pay a higher price to try and get him, even if it was for just 1 year, to try and lure him to sign that contract extension. So that's why I think that the tag is 100% going to happen, and it wouldn't shock me if it still means that a year from now, he's playing for someone else.
Yeah. Sorry, the lag is really bad here. So I kind of pieced together what you were saying there. With the whole tag and trade thing. And I do agree. I think considering the position of T. Higgins, which is wide receiver, which is one of the highest paid positions in the league, I think you could get a really good haul from him. And I would be surprised if it wasn't a first round draft pick. But the thing is that, I don't know, did the Bengals show T some grace a little bit and say, hey, we want you to get your bag? Unfortunately, we've got a lot of money tied up and we have to spend it on other positions. Best of luck in free agency or whatever. And I doubt the team would do that, but
I was going to say, do good teams do that?
No, good organizations probably don't do that.
I love T. Higgins, but if we're being honest, T. Higgins doesn't deserve that level of respect yet either.
Yeah. No, I don't know if any player does.
I think you could have said, 2019 AJ Green maybe would have potentially deserved that respect because he'd been there a long time. He'd been through the thick and thin, but I don't know that I could see an argument that T. Higgins deserves that. And again, look at me. I love T. Higgins. Love what he does. He's a great player, and I hope he's a Bengal for the rest of his career. But realistically saying, I don't know that that's going to be a thing. But I still think the tag and trade is maybe the most likely opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's definitely an opportunity. Here's my thing though: have we ever really seen many players get tagged and then traded?
Wasn't AJ Brown an option of that?
I don't know. I didn't know if AJ Brown got the tag or not. I honestly don't know. I know he got traded, obviously, but I'm not sure about the tag aspect of that. I actually kind of want to look that up a little bit, but
I'll give it a Google while you're talking.
But yeah, I would say, it kind of also maybe it kind of shakes out what happens for the rest of the season. If the Bengals go out and win a Super Bowl, I mean, does that change things this year? Next off season. So,
I'm looking here in a couple of options that you've seen already. This article I'm reading is from 2021, so it's a few years old. But you had Yannick Ngakoue. He was an option. Jadeveon Clowney was an option. Frank Clark from the Seahawks. Dee Ford from the Chiefs. So there is precedent for that to happen. Now, I know none of those guys that I just mentioned in that quick sentence are skill guys as far as, wide receivers or a quarterback or something. But I don't want to steal what Hear That podcast Growling does, Mick, but they do the run, pass, or boot option. So we're not going to do that, but I'm just going to have you rank most likely to least likely here. And I think it's best to do 4 options so we can take it away from our own. We're not going to have a creative name or anything. But for T. Higgins, 1 year from today, most likely to happen, he is tagged and traded. He just is a straight up free agent and leaves. He is an extension for the Bengals, or he's tagged and is a Bengal playing on the franchise tag. Rank those from most likely to least.
I missed 2 of the options. So you said.
So
sorry about the lag, everybody. I don't know why it's happening today of all days, but so you're saying the options were he gets extended, he gets tagged and traded, or they just let him go.
Correct.
Okay. Most likely, tag. Second most likely, extend. Third most likely, tag and trade. Fourth most likely, they probably just let him go.
And I don't necessarily disagree. I think it's interesting. I probably think that the tag and trade is a little higher. I think that the clear number 4 is them just letting him walk for nothing. Because I guess nothing is a 3rd round pick. And a tag and trade, you're going to get more than a 3rd round pick.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And like I said, just given the position that T plays and given that he could be a number 1 wide receiver on a lot of NFL teams, I think that could be a 1st round pick easily.
So, Mick, I ask you, you are Duke Tobin. How are you handling T. Higgins next offseason?
Probably tagging him. I mean, that seems like the best way to do it. Now, Josh, our dear friend in the Houday Nation group, and just mentioned that if the Bengals won the Super Bowl this year, they would be more comfortable with moving on from T or moving T for value. I do agree with that. So it kind of depends on what happens this season. So if they came close again this year and didn't win the Super Bowl, I think it's tag and you keep T 1 more season. If they do win it, you could probably move on in a trade. But I guess the other thing is, even with the Burrow extension, is that it is possible to keep Jamar and T and extend both of them with true extensions. I don't necessarily want that to happen though. So if I'm Duke, I would probably tag T and keep him for 2024 and then let him test the free agent market in the 2025 offseason.
Well, then theoretically, you even have the option that you could tag him again after that.
That there's a level of disrespect that comes with tagging a guy 2 years in a row, I think.
There is, but it is an awful lot of money that he gets because I think it's like 1.5 times. I think if you get tagged for a second straight season, so he'd be getting top level money.
Yeah,
and that's always where my thing. And I agree with what Josh is saying, but it's also I think it's 1.5 times, and I think that the cap number for wide receivers was something like 20 million. So we'll just say that it's 20 million. So you're telling me that
it's like the 5th highest, right? This is like is it an average of the top 5 or?
Yes, okay, that's what it is. So let's just say
with that one there.
Let's just say if it's $20 million next year, and it'll be higher than that, then the double tag would be 30 mil. And it's tough for me to say and feel bad for a guy who's making $30 million a year. So and again, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's ever going to come to that. But
I don't know, because you're subjecting T to a whole lot of risk if you do the double tag, right? Because
yeah, but you're also like, you're a business. You're not in it for, like, you are in it to make sure that your team is the best possible. Now, will that really tick T. Higgins off? Probably. Will he potentially have the holdout? Potentially, but guess what? Then he doesn't get paid. So it's that simple because of how the tag works. So you get to almost call the bluff. Now, again, will it happen? I'd be beyond shocked, but it is an option theoretically out there that the Bengals would want to do. And I don't disagree here with what Josh Howe says. He says from the player agent perspective, it's $30 million, but he can go get maybe 100 plus on the market. Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's a security thing for sure. It's just like, you want to be locked up for a long period of time with more rolling guarantees. Yeah, that's just, I don't know. I would be, if I were Duke Tobin, I would consider it a disrespect to somebody that gave his all to my organization for a few years to tag him 2 years in a row. And honestly, other players would take note of that as well. That the organization is willing to do that. Maybe you don't get as many free agent signings, or better free agent signings like they had the past couple of years, if they don't show the players some respect in some way, shape, or form in that aspect.
The other big news of the week was yesterday. La'el Collins was released from the PUP list and is now a free agent. Surprising, Mick?
Kind of. Now, from a money perspective, it's not. Like, what did they save, 7-8 mil for getting rid of, or cutting La'el Collins? So from a financial standpoint, it was not surprising. Now, from a roster depth standpoint, I thought it was a little surprising.
Yeah, I was very surprised when I saw it happen, and it was one of those things. Taking you inside baseball, I work for a media organization. I was broadcasting high school soccer last night, which was, again, we're not getting into that, but I didn't see it, and it didn't come across or anything like that. And I went on air and had a lot going on, and I didn't end up seeing it until like 10 o'clock last night. It was one of those things that it had been so long since it had come out that it wasn't even like the first thing that I saw on my feed. So I was just scrolling through, and it was like, all of a sudden, Bengals released La'el Collins, and I was like, what? Like, how is this not the first thing that I'm seeing right now? What? But I think here's to me, and I think you touched on it, Mick, as to why I think I potentially would have kept him, is what has been the number one reason that the Cincinnati Bengals have lost pretty much in the playoffs the last 2 seasons?
Offensive line depth.
Offensive line depth. And here is my follow-up question is, do you trust La'el Collins or Jackson Carman more?
Oh, La'el Collins. I might trust La'el more at right tackle than I trust Jonah at right tackle. That's kind of where I'm coming off with that, is that, Jonah's transitioning over to right tackle and did not look great on Sunday. Now, given he had a really hard matchup to deal with. But, honestly, do you see like that far of a difference or that much of a difference between the two? Now, you can't get rid of Jonah, right? You signed him to a 5th-year option. He's making what? 10 plus mil a year.
Theoretically, they could get rid of him, but they'd have to pay him every dollar. So
yeah, they'd have to pay him every dollar. You're out what? I got to look at it.
14 mil, I think, something like that.
14. Yeah. You're not going to sacrifice $14 million. But yeah, considering that offensive line depth has been what's been your Achilles heel in the playoffs, and you're not keeping a guy as an insurance policy. Now that's the thing that I more or less have a problem with. And the other thing here is that they had La'el Collins for a 3rd year on top of that. The Bengals could have been in a very good situation for Jonah to walk after this season, and they still have a starting caliber right tackle signed for another season. So that's the part that I kind of disagree with. La'el getting cut this.
Because I think the biggest thing with La'el last year is he was fine. Maybe below fine. Like, he wasn't good.
I thought he was pretty all right. I thought he was pretty all right from the middle to the end of his season last year.
Yeah, he played better as it went along, but I think the biggest thing with La'el Collins is the injury worry, is how much faith can you put into him of his injury, and especially because he missed a lot of practice last year with a back, and a back is something that doesn't necessarily ever truly heal.
No.
Without completely tearing apart your back, something that a guy who is in his prime or on the post end of his prime is not going to do.
Especially at the offensive line position too. Like, you're putting on a lot of weight, and your back has to support all that weight. So, yeah, that might be a hard thing to kind of get over or to minimize as much as you can. And maybe that's what the Bengals were looking at. But the fact that they had La'el for very cheap next year, I just thought that was a really good, contingency plan once the season's over and Jonah might be moving on from the team. Now, Josh mentioned in the comments that he wouldn't be surprised for Jonah to have an okay season at right tackle for them to extend him. If that's the case, that kind of they kind of maybe that situation would be solved a little bit, but I don't know. Josh,
I know Zach.
If La'el started next year, would you call it cheap though?
Yeah, and I know Zach Taylor today was asked in his press conference, does this decision have any impact on how Deontay Smith has played and come about in training camp and so on? And he said, not really, but he is proud of how Deontay Smith has come along. Now, again, do I trust La'el Collins or Deontay Smith more? Obviously, I'm going to pick La'el Collins. But also, like I said, you at some point, you have to worry about the injury history for some of these guys. But I still would have kept him for the reason enough alone of the Bengals' two right tackles on the last two AFC championship games have been Akeem Adeniji and Isaiah Prince. Two guys who I don't even know are on 53-man rosters right now. I highly doubt it. And they've started the two most important games for the Bengals the last 2 years.
Yeah. No, it's that's just where I wanted an insurance policy just for this season. And you do save $8 million on the cap. It rolls forward to next year. Maybe that goes towards the extension. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it goes towards signing somebody else. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of wanted some depth there. I thought that's what they were going to do. I wonder if they were actively trying to seek a trade, but that would have been impossible to do given he was on the PUP list. But yeah, long story short, La'el's gone. It's all right that we're not paying a backup tackle $8 million or whatever he was making. But yeah, I'm just, I'm not too sure about it just from a depth perspective.
Mick, when we started this podcast, and even if you go to our Spotify or Apple Podcasts or something, which make sure you do, subscribe that way, so you get all of our podcasts put in that way. So make sure you do that. Is it says in our description, the last thing I put in there was deliver maybe a therapy session or two. And I feel like that's what we have to do right now in recapping the game from Sunday, the Cleveland Browns game, and have put on our therapy hats and talk a little bit about what happened on Sunday. And I think the best way to do it, Mick, is to divide it into the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's go positive to start off with and go with some of the good. What was some of the good that you saw on Sunday in the, what is the word to describe, in the something as to whatever we want to call happened on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, so good. The defense looked decent. Now, it wasn't the greatest defensive performance I've ever seen, but given that they only gave up 24 points despite how bad the average field position was in the other way, or how good of a field position the Browns had, and given how the offense wasn't literally doing anything, I thought 24 points was given up was pretty impressive. And they kept the team in the game for 3 quarters miraculously.
I think another one of the good on that note, just to kind of build on it, I think specifically on the defense, the pass rush. I was very impressed with the pass rush, and I don't remember a Bengals pass
the
rush
pass rush
recently
looked a lot better.
Getting that much pressure in a while. I mean, Deshaun Watson was running for his life back there.
Yeah, and I wonder how much it had to do with Jack Conklin's injury that the edge rushers were starting to tee off a little bit. But yeah, the pass rush looked a lot better in week 1 than it did last year. Zach Carter made a couple nice plays. Trey obviously had we have a couple of sacks. We had one.
I don't know that he had any sacks now that I'm thinking about it. I think he just had pressures.
I know BJ had a sack. Trey was eating all game, though.
And that's the thing is, with guys like him, a sack doesn't necessarily, like, he can impact a play just as much without getting the sack. And he had a lot of moments like that of just, I mean, heck, the play that Jack Conklin got hurt on was because Trey Hendrickson was rushing the passer across the outside, and the offensive tackle just had to throw him down. And when he did, he threw him down right into the leg of his fellow offensive lineman.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
I think another good
the pass
that came
rush
out of
great.
I think another good that came out of Sunday came out healthy. Like, in all seriousness, you look around the league, there have been so many big injuries, and we'll touch on it later, especially with the Baltimore Ravens. I really can't think of any big injuries that came out of that game.
I don't think any happened. All the starters are still intact as far as I know. So yeah, that's definitely a good thing that we came out healthy. Another good / I don't know if it's bad or good, but the fact that Brad Robbins got a lot of reps in the punting game, I feel like was a good thing. Especially given the weather elements of the game. I thought, he came out there and, he punted 8 times. He got a lot of reps. He had some good reps, some bad reps. But the fact that he got so much, experience out of that one game, I think was a plus for the team, or for Brad Robbins at least.
Josh Isles said Jermaine Pratt is definitely in the good realm, and I agree. Jermaine Pratt was great. I wasn't necessarily on team re-sign Jermaine Pratt, but he shut me up after that first game without question. Yep. Let's go to the bad.
I can't wait for my Jermaine Pratt jersey to come in next week.
There you go. Yeah. The bad. That next level of the bad.
So the offense as a whole, Joe Mixon was the best player on the offense, and he still didn't even look
You're giving the offense bad and not ugly. I give you credit.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably in the ugly category, but there's a lot of there's some particular like aspects of the offense that I have in the ugly category. Not the offense as a whole. I'll just put as a bad. Wide receiver separation was not even a thing in the game against the Browns on Sunday. The defense wasn't great at containing Nick Chubb. Now that's a really hard thing to do. But I thought the run defense was kind of lacking a little bit. I don't think Logan Wilson had the best of games. I think there was a lot of missed tackles on his end. We talk about Trey as good of a pass rusher he is, but his run defense is horrendous.
I think for me, the bad is I would put the offensive line in the bad and not in the ugly. Because I think you did see, like, Orlando Brown Jr., for the most part, I think he gave up 2 pressures, maybe 3. But you're telling me you give up 3 pressures against Myles Garrett? Okay. Like it's just, and I think I give the Browns a lot of credit. I mean, for one, that defense is loaded with talent. And that's up there with a top tier level defense. But they were moving Myles Garrett around so much.
Did you watch the play where he was like lined up over Karras?
As like a 3-tech? Yeah.
Yeah. That was crazy.
What do you want them to do? I mean, Myles Garrett is arguably, an argument could be made, the best pass rusher in the NFL. I think you could make an argument on that. Do I think he's the best? Maybe not, but if I'm asking you to make a Mount Rushmore right now of best pass rushers in the NFL, he's probably on it.
Yeah, I would think Myles Garrett is the best pass rusher in the league. And considering the production he gets in years past when the rest of the pass rush has been pretty garbage, in the fact that he's still eating and creating problems in offensive backfields, I think that puts Myles Garrett over the top for me, and the fact that he's got such a good supporting cast this year, I feel like Myles Garrett could be on his way to something truly special this year. So
I do agree with what
that's
Josh
also
said
the
here.
bad. I feel like any Cleveland game might be an automatic loss.
Yeah, I do agree with what Josh said here. I don't think the offensive line played bad. He said, I think Joe had a couple of plays that he basically hurt the line's chances by not audibling when there was obvious pressure coming. And that's what kind of worried me a little bit. And this might be the time to transition into the ugly. And in the ugly was Joe Burrow. I mean, listen, you know me. I love Joe Burrow more than the next guy. He was awful on Sunday. Awful.
Yeah. No,
Booty
same
cheeks.
here. Same here. I love Joe as much as the next guy, but yeah, he did not have a good game. The communication, we talk about the ugly, the communication from the team as a whole was piss poor. I mean, you gave up a couple of first downs to T. Higgins because of bad communication with T. Higgins. You weren't identifying rushers. You were allowing a lot of free rushers in the offensive line. And a lot of that does come down to Joe Burrow. It's, and how much does that have to do with the lack of reps? How much does that have to do with, all the distractions that were taking place beforehand with the contract extension? We don't know. But Joe definitely wasn't on his A game. He was not. It didn't seem like he was communicating well. It didn't seem like he had command of the offense. And that's something that I think will be an outlier. But, yeah, I agree, Paul. It was very hard to watch on Sunday. I was actually, I got pretty animated a few times watching the offense play because you have an offensive head coach, an offensive, you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And, I wasn't expecting, them to be firing on all cylinders, but I expected them to at least look functional at some point in the game. And they did.
I made the comment at the end of the show last week that I predicted this game to be a lot like the game in 2021 against the Chicago Bears. And it was game number 2 or number 3 of that season where it was awful for the first 3 quarters. And then in the 4th quarter, it was almost like someone woke up and said, hey, do we actually want to start playing now? And they were like, yeah, let's do it. And then they come back and then they fall up a little short and lose by a field goal or something along the lines of that. And I was waiting all game for something for that moment to happen, and it just never did. Because I really thought when, I guess it was their first drive of the second half, when they got the ball back, down by 3 or something, and I was expecting, okay, this is it. They've had their fun. They made some adjustments at halftime. We're good. We're golden. The rain has died down a bit. Let's roll. And it never happened. It never happened in the entire game, and that's what worries me.
Yeah, the other parallel game I thought was like the week 1 game against the Steelers last year, where the offense just wasn't doing too much until the second half, when then they finally just started to click and figure it out. But I just wonder if the Browns' defense was just that good.
And I think there is an aspect too that is just the fact that they are good. They're a really good team. They're one of the best teams in the NFL as far as defense goes. And then the weather. Like, I'm not an excuse guy, but the weather was an impact.
Yeah, the weather could have, definitely could have impacted the game a little bit. I don't want to give too much, I don't want to give too much leeway in regards to the weather, because both teams have to play in the weather. So it's, it kind of just boils down to who can handle those conditions the best. Now, the fact that Joe wasn't prepared to throw in the rain, that was a little concerning to me, because I know he hates using a glove, and it was so bad to the point where he had to use a glove. So I don't know. I'm just kind of concerned. I was kind of concerned about that, but I don't know. The offense was better than obviously better than what they showed on Sunday.
And see, I kind of in a way disagree with you too. One of my other uglies, and I might be being mean in saying it's an ugly, and it might be more of a bad, but I put Brad Robbins in that category. I think he was not good. And I get it. There were conditions with it as well. But he had a couple of punts that were like, oof, oof, oof. Like, and I'm not by no means throwing in the card. They made the right decision taking Brad Robbins over Drew Chrisman. You're not going to see me argue with that. But I think it is also to the point of being able to say he was not good on Sunday. Now, let's see him this coming Sunday. Hopefully, he never touches the field except for field goals for Evan McPherson or extra points for Evan McPherson, and he never goes back to actually punt during the game because the Bengals offense is dealing.
Yeah.
But I was disappointed in the Brad Robbins show.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of disagree just because I thought I saw a couple of decent punts out of Brad Robbins,
but you're in the NFL.
Yeah, it wasn't the best game
a couple doesn't get it done. You're in the NFL.
Yeah, but a couple given the weather conditions. So I will use the weather as an excuse for special teams for Brad Robbins and Evan McPherson, because you're kicking into the wind like that. That might be just a huge issue for them, right? So I don't know if I could put Brad in the ugly, especially if there were some positives that came out of his game.
Then I guess I can classify him to the bad.
Yes.
I'll move him up there, but I don't know that I agree with him as far as the good. I think as a whole, though, this Browns game, I put it in here in our name. Mick, when you left that, were you panicking?
When we left the Browns game?
Browns game, yes.
Yes and no, because I don't think the Bengals can right the ship fairly quickly. But more because I think the Browns might be good enough to win the division this year. Their defense looked like a top 5 defense on Sunday. They had a lot of personnel change. Jim Schwartz is coming in and called a hell of a game. So that's the part where I might be worried that I think the Browns are a legitimate threat, and they definitely looked like one on Sunday. But I'm not worried in the fact that I think the Bengals could right the ship fairly quickly, and it could start. I think it very well could start this week against the Ravens.
And I think that's the perfect transition into this weekend against the Baltimore Ravens. And listen, Mick, I mean, it's a huge game. I don't like throwing in, I know Paul Dehner Jr. in the Hear That Podcast growling, he always jokes about having the must-win wristband. And his joke is you're only allowed to use must-win once a season. And really using it in week 2 it's too early to say that it is a must-win. But, Mick, I think an argument could be made that just in a generalized term, that this is still as close to must-win as you're going to get in week 2.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I won't put the must-win tag on it yet, but you would really want to win this game now. You want to win every game, right? But, there is a precedent, I guess, of starting out 0-3 in the division and starting 0-2 on the year last year, and they still won 10 games in a row and won the division and made it to the AFC Championship. But you want to try to avoid that situation as much as you can. So, yeah, I would just, I would say it's kind of a must win. I don't think it's in the must win category, but I think that, you want to avoid being in the hole you were in last year, even though you did get out of it and won the division last year.
I think a couple of reasons why I want to throw that must-win wristband already in the season, and I'm not going to. But you look, first off, the game is at home. You got to win at home. Got to win at home. There's just no other way to put it for that. You got to find a way to take care of business when you're at Paycor Stadium. But then you also look at this Ravens team. They're beat up. They're as beat up as you're going to get in week number 2. J.K. Dobbins out. Tyler Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley, 2 starters on their offensive line, look like they're going to be out. They're both week to week, didn't practice today. Marlon Humphrey did not practice today. Mark Andrews was limited. Presumably that means limited on Wednesday would probably point to him playing on Sunday, but they are incredibly beat up. And because of that, this game, you've got to find a way to take advantage of it when a team is down, especially when you're at home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the biggest key factor for them to win on Sunday is that, the Baltimore secondary, even with Marlon Humphrey, was still kind of spreading themselves a little thin. And now that Marlon Humphrey's gone, and Marcus Williams might be out too. Did they say anything about Marcus Williams?
He did not practice today either.
Yeah, so you got 2 really good starters in your secondary that are out, and we've got presumably a top 5 trio. A lot of people would put him at number 1. I don't know if we're at number one. I haven't really dived too deep into that. But regardless, given that their cornerback room is shot right now in week 2, Joe, Jamar, Tyler, T, Irv, they have to take advantage of this beat up secondary. And I think that's probably their easiest avenue in terms of winning this game.
And I think that's kind of leads us into to talking here of Bengals offense versus the Ravens defense. I think, you touched on it there, is if there is a team to go up against to try and get the passing offense rolling, it's probably going to be this Ravens team because of, like you just touched on, is they're beat up in the secondary. And I think Paul makes a good point. Teagan's got to catch some balls. Burrow's got to throw some better balls. Guys got to get open. And I think this is as good of a time to do it as ever. Now, this Ravens secondary is not the Ravens secondary that we saw back in 2021, who had pretty much me and you back there. But they're not the Ravens secondary that we've seen, though, over the past couple of years.
No, and let's see who's penciled in at starter, because I think it might be close to the cornerback room we did see in 2021. What do they got here? They got Ronald Darby, who is a new guy. He's been an established starter in the league, but he's towards the end of his career, right? You got Brandon Stevens, who I think was one of the 2 players that T had that ridiculous catch on in 2021, the one that he high-pointed in double coverage or whatever. Got our Darius Washington, who, I don't know, had a 44 coverage grade last year. But the safety duo is fairly better than it was in 2021 with Kyle Hamilton and Geno Stone playing. So maybe it's not as bad as 2021, but it's pretty bad.
It's a secondary that this Bengals receiving core should feast on. And Paul writes in and says that the Bengals should have kept Hayden Hurst over Irv Smith. And I think that question is one that we're going to have to look at and talk to me at the bye week. Yeah. Irv Smith didn't do anything for me in week 1, but nobody did. So it's not like I can fault him for that.
Yeah.
Talk to me at the bye week and how I feel about Irv Smith. But I think this is also for him a big game to try and do something as well. You need to find a way to get him rolling.
Yeah. No, I think it's a big game from Irv too, because you did bring up the point. Nobody looks good on that offense, but I did not think Irv looked good at all in that offense. I thought that he looked small. I thought he looked weak. He was struggling to catch balls. I was not particularly impressed with this performance in week 1, but could he right the ship week 2? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. They do have very good coverage linebackers in Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, so maybe that maybe it might be a little more difficult for him to just completely bounce back in week 1 or week 2. But yeah, no, I'd say that this is a big game for him to kind of right the ship and right his season.
The Ravens offense looked good week 1 against the Houston Texans, though. So take into that what you want. Lamar Jackson has brand new wide receivers. Zay Jones, I know, had a big game in his debut. This Bengals defense, though, has been created to stop guys like Lamar Jackson. And I think in all reality, last year against him, they did a pretty good job the one time that they played him. They let him break the big one that led to the game-winning kickoff or game-winning field goal by Justin Tucker. But Lamar is going to get his. But I think what you have to do with Lamar is make him pass. And if Lamar drops and passes for 350 and the Bengals lose, then you tip your cap.
Yeah. No, and I think that's probably the biggest key for the Ravens too, is I think Lamar is going to have to will his team to victory here, because the defense is shot. It's probably going to I don't know. It's probably not going to be that great. So your biggest advantages for the Ravens is, Lamar doing Lamar things and maybe getting the running offense, getting the run game a little bit going. But yeah, I don't know. It's I noticed this thing the past few years of the Ravens in week 1, but somebody in the scheduling office of the NFL has to be a Ravens fan, because it seems like they've just been given gimmies every week 1 for like the past 5 years. and a lot of blowout wins. One against the Dolphins a few years ago that I remember. Obviously, the one against the Texans last week seems like a gimme. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, they almost were going to get the division title based off of coin flip last year, so we can continue talking about that as well. But I think that the biggest question mark with this Ravens offense is, yes, Lamar can run, but with J.K. Dobbins getting hurt again, you're looking at Gus Edwards, like that running back coming out of the backfield. I think for the Bengals has to make you feel better, because Dobbins, to me, when healthy, was kind of that X factor of the offense to really make them go as being another true threat. And Gus Edwards is not J.K. Dobbins.
No, but Gus Edwards does run between the tackles pretty well. Now, is he a true explosive threat like J.K. Dobbins? I don't know. But, and it's going to be weird because, you have a completely different offensive system on the Ravens. Are they, where they're trying to be more focused on their wide receivers and stuff. I wonder if, and on the passing game, I wonder if J.K. Dobbins is really going to be much of a factor anymore for this Ravens offense.
Yeah, and I think you very well could have seen him play one of his last games in a Ravens jersey. Now that he got hurt again, it's almost getting to the point where they can't trust him, and that stinks when it comes to that. But I think Paul makes a good point that Lamar's going to make the mistakes, and I think that's the biggest key to this game for the Bengals. Is they have to force Lamar into making those mistakes. And that starts with a pass rush. But like Josh says, that you're going to have to spy him as well. And he thinks Dax Hill is. And if you can get that combination of the spy and the pass rush and force Lamar to beat you with his arm, I think it could be a really good game for the Bengals defensively, even if the offense isn't rolling.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. Yeah, that's probably the best key to success on the defense is to make to have forced turnovers on Lamar's end, and Lamar usually does make mistakes passing the ball. So I don't know.
I mean, you think back at the game,
it could be a pretty good day.
The Sunday Night Football game, he threw one. Was it Jesse Bates or Von Bell? Von Bell, right? That it was just an awful throw that he made. I'm remembering up the sideline. I'm trying to remember as to who made the pick. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I kind of lost you in the spiel there, but were you talking about the game week 5 last year?
The Sunday Night Football game, Lamar, I remember, had an awful pick.
Yes.
And it was it Von Bell?
I think it was Von that had that interception. I think it was Von because he had a stretch in the games between the Dolphins and the Ravens game where I think he had 3 picks, if I remember correctly. So yeah, yes. It was probably Von.
And I think that shows that the Lamar Jackson that you need to force more of, because listen, he is going to beat you with his legs. And I've said this since the minute Lamar got into the league. He is a fantastic athlete. Maybe the best athlete at the quarterback position that the league has ever seen. I think an argument could be made on that. But he is a below average passer. And you need to make that Lamar come out above the Lamar that is going to run all over you.
Yeah. And I think that Lamar is probably going to be coming out on Sunday and probably just in general throughout at least like the first half of the season, given the change in schematics that the Ravens are trying to implement this season with Tom Muckin coming in. He's more of a pass-heavy guy. You don't have an offense, curated by Greg Roman where it was entirely focused on Lamar's running ability. So I think that bodes well for the defense this weekend for sure.
Special teams, when it comes to this, I mean, you've got 2 of the best kickers in the league. Justin Tucker is elite. Evan McPherson is probably that next tier, because I think Justin Tucker is in his own tier.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there is a group of kickers in the tier below, and I think Evan McPherson is in that tier. So you're looking at 2 of the best kickers. I was looking at the weather. It is going to be perfect weather. I think we're looking at like 78 and sunny for kickoff. No excuses for the weather. The kickers are probably going to love it too. And this game very well could come down to a Justin Tucker or an Evan McPherson field goal.
Yeah, it very well could. I don't know if it will come to that. I think we'll get to our picks here in a second.
Yeah. We don't want to run out. I'm just it could. Maybe that's where I'm leaning towards my pick. I've still got another couple minutes to go for it. Paul Reese picking a 60-yard field goal for Justin Tucker.
I wonder what the odds on that are. Can you do a prop bet on field goal yardage somewhere?
I am sure. Speaking of that, is there anything that you're liking for a mix money of the week?
Joe Burrow over passing yards. I don't know where they're sitting at right now, but I'm going to go with the over on the passing yards. I'm going to go with the over on the Jamar and T receiving yards. I think the offense could definitely feast this weekend, and I think they should feast this weekend.
Okay, so mix rolling. So would you parlay those three then?
No, I don't parlay.
You're anti-parlay?
I think parlays are fool's gold, Sam.
Paul writes in, I think this is accurate of his bet of the week. Mixing under on rushing. I'd almost bet that every week.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Josh wants to know over on both Jamar and T. Hey, that'd be fun.
I think that'd be fun as well. We could be running back to 2021 here, and I'm really hoping that's the case.
I like it. I like the Joe Burrow overpassing number. I'm hoping that is the case. But I almost would disagree. I think that I might go under Burrow passing. I don't know.
So it all depends on where the line's set, right? I don't know where the line's at right now.
I don't know. I mean, technically
we're 250, right? That's probably
Technically, since we live in the state of Kentucky, we are only allowed to bet in person. So we can't bet on our phones for another 3 weeks. Or 2 weeks, I think we're looking at. I think it's maybe the 28th. Well, I guess that's
like a week. Is it the 28th? I thought I heard the 24th.
I think it's the 28th. I think it's the so we're 2 weeks away. I think it's the 28th. I think it is that Thursday right before the Titans game that we'll be looking at it. And I've been liking to play around on DraftKings, and I love the all in-game. And it's also very dangerous for me because I love the whole, how will this drive end? Will it end in this? Who's going to catch the first pass? And I'm thinking, I need to stay away from that because I'm going to be watching the random college football game or the random, I guess Thursday night game this week is good. It's Eagles and Vikings, right?
Yeah, no, it should be a good one.
Yeah, that's a great one. But there will be at least one Thursday night game this year that is a total clunker. And to get myself interested, I'm going to be probably doing all of those in-game betting, and I'm probably going to lose a lot of money and have to just lose my phone on that. But I guess it's the time in the pod, Mick, where we can make our picks, right?
Yeah, sure.
We last week both predicted correctly that the Bengals would lose to the Cleveland Browns. I know, Mick, you predicted the blowout. I think 34-20, if my memory's right. And I think I predicted Browns 23-20. So we both win in that. You technically, if we were keeping score, you would get a bonus point for getting closer to the actual margin. So let's go through here this week. Who wins the Bengals versus the Ravens on Sunday at 1:00 with and it surprises me here. I didn't mention it. For one, we got to mention the official, Sean Hockley. Last time Sean Hockley.
Is that the Pittsburgh game?
It was 0-1. I think it's his only time ever doing it. It was the Pittsburgh game last year.
Okay, small sample size. That's okay.
The crew, the broadcast crew, I find interesting. And me being the broadcast nerd, I always like to try and predict which crew because it's usually pretty easy. The Nance and Romo's always the CBS 425 game. And then usually Ian Eagle gets the next best game. Kevin Harlan gets the third best game. And then the rest are kind of scrambled. Ian Eagle is on the second best game of the day, which I don't remember what it is now that I'm
Who's the color commentator with those guys?
Ian Eagle is Charles Davis.
Okay.
Who is this one? Kevin Harlan has Trent Green, I think is his name.
Okay.
The Bengals this week, though, will have Andrew Catalon. And I don't remember Andrew Catalon's main color analyst, but Matt Ryan is also in his booth this year as his third chair.
Really?
Which is interesting because I found it interesting that I was learning, and we're getting off topic, but Matt Ryan technically is not retired from the NFL yet.
Not retired, but still making money somewhere, doing something.
With the Colts. So technically, because if he retired, he's still under contract with the Colts. And if he retired, he would lose all that money. So he's got to find something to do for a year. So because of that, he is in the booth with Andrew Catalon. So that's going to who has the Bengals call on Sunday.
Kudos to Matt Ryan for just making the best of both worlds right there.
And see, I almost kind of wish that I could hear Matt Ryan call the game because I'd be interested to see how it goes. But again, back on topic, Mick, who wins? Bengals or Ravens, and what's the final score? How's it go about?
I'm going to go Bengals win 27-17. I think the offense is going to tee off. Maybe I'll go a little bit higher. We'll go 34-20. But I used 34-20 last week. 41-24 Bengals. There we go. Yeah, there we go. I think the offense gets back on track. I think they take advantage of a depleted Ravens secondary. I think Joe is going to look like Joe, hopefully. I think Jamar and T are going to get what's due to them. And I just see the defense competing with the Ravens offense more than I see the Ravens defense competing with Bengals offense this week.
You are much more optimistic than myself. Much more optimistic than me. And I give you credit for that. I like I said last week, I do, and I think it's pretty much the same thing I said. I do agree with you on one thing, and I disagree with you on one thing. The thing I agree with you on is that the Bengals are going to win the game. The thing I disagree is there is not going to be that many points in this game. I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals to win the game 16-13. Evan McPherson has a go-ahead game-winning field goal in the last minute or so. It's not quite at the gun, but it is enough to where Lamar has to run a couple of plays, and Lamar throws a pick. Logan Wilson gets the interception, drops down, Burrow comes out, takes the knee, and then we get to find out who the new back flipper is in the back there of that.
You think it's good? Yeah, that's the biggest question. Who's going to be the backflip guy?
You. I heard that Zach Taylor is going to be buying you all of the White Claws you can drink and see how many backflips you could do after the game.
It's going to be 0. But
I'd pay good money to see it happen.
I'll gladly drink as much as Zach provides me and try. But yeah, who's going to be the backflip guy?
I'd assume it'll probably be Chris Evans back there, but I don't know that Chris Evans can do the backflip.
That's a good candidate. That's a good candidate right there.
Yes, but Trent Taylor was the backflip guy. But I am picking Bengals 16, Ravens 13 with an Evan McPherson field goal in the closing under the 2-minute warning. We'll say that. It's not at the gun, but we'll do it. Paul Reese, his White Claw won't help my backflip.
Same here, Paul.
That's why I said it. You might need a Red Bull, right? Gives you wings. Let's be real. There is nothing that would help me do a backflip. Nothing. Yeah. There's no shot that I know.
I don't even help me do a backflip. That's
I don't know that I could do a half flip and like end on my head. Like I don't even know that I'd make it that far. I think I'd just be a back.
I can barely get out of the chair I'm sitting in.
Yeah, better get a neck brace ready. You are right, Paul. Yeah, as long as the Cincinnati, EMS is waiting for me, then I'm ready for it.
Well, given the couple of events that happened last year at Paycor Stadium, I think they'd be ready.
I would hope so. This has been fun as always. We'll be back. But before we wrap it up, we do want to invite you to make sure you follow us on Facebook, subscribe to the Jungle Juice YouTube page. We're also on all of the podcast platforms now, even in France, Mick. We're on the French podcast platform.
Oui.
Parlez-vous français? That's all I got for you. Bonjour. If you're listening, though, in France, on this podcast platform that neither one of us had ever heard of, drop us a message. I'm interested. I want to know, are you a Bengals fan, or maybe you're just scrolling through the good old French podcast airwaves? I don't know. But we welcome you. Houday.
Houday, France, and then Houday to everybody else. And yeah, please check us out on wherever you get your media from. We're on pretty much any streaming platform that I can think of at this point.
Yes,
we are. Sam's dedication there and his.
We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon. We're on iHeart. We're on pretty much everywhere you get it, and even that French site if you use that, which I don't remember what the French site's called, but if you use it, I'm sure you know what it is.
For sure. And just to throw out an apology here, I know that the lag was pretty bad during this stream. try to improve it. I think from what Sam told me, it's probably my fault, and I kind of agree with that too because I don't know. I've been having good internet connection in the spare room here for the most part, but past couple of days it's been a little shoddy. So just wanted to throw out an apology there for the lack of connection prowess there.
It's all good. It's what happens. I've had podcasts. Paul will tell you he's watched on another show from the press box where I've had some that does it. Paul says he needs the Bengals to win. Paul, we are in very much agreement because it's a whole lot more fun, especially because, in fact, we can say this too, Mick. I know we'll be out at Bengal Jim's tailgate before the game, which is, I know that, and I found this out, and again, we're getting off topic, but we learned that we usually hang out on the park side of Bengal Gyms, which I found out we really weren't supposed to be doing until this year. Found that out, but it was kind of interesting. We
got down into the DJ booth towards the end of last year, like the Bills and the Ravens game. We were pretty much hanging out. Well, Bills game, I was out picnic tables drinking, and then we ended up partying at the DJ booth for like the last hour. We can't wait to see you either, Josh. This is going to be a legendary time at the tailgate. I'm kind of scared as to what might transpire for me for those few hours.
Paul, most of our Bengals fans, we tailgate at a place that's right outside of the stadium. It's been a long-running tailgate. The guy's name that does it is Bengal Jim. So it's Bengal Jim's before the Roar tailgate. They do a lot of charity stuff. It's awesome. And it's one of those things that if you do go and do it, make sure you throw in a couple of bucks into the till, or they have a Venmo or something. And I know that Jim has even started doing a like thing where you can donate money at the start to do it as well. So make sure you do that. And he's doing like different tiers, and you get your name on the sign and so on. So if you can help out, Jim and his guys do phenomenal work. They donate money to a lot of it. So make sure that if you go, you stop by, that you throw a couple of dollars in the till, even if you eat or if you don't. They do great work, and they got the DJ and everything. And I know if you see us, give us a high five. You can tell us we suck. Wouldn't be the first ones and do it. As long as you could tell us you suck, as long as you prove that you follow us. Then you could tell us whatever you want.
Well, that kind of just proves that they do, right? That they at least watch us at some point. So
that is true.
And question on the Bengal Gyms tailgate. You said they're moving. Are they moving closer to the park, or are they expanding?
They are expanding. So apparently they technically weren't supposed to be in the park. But I think everyone just kind of stood in the park because it got so crowded in the other areas. And now that it's actually like part of his tailgate. It is the park, Smale Park, or however you say it down there, is now actually part of it. So it's just was funny to me that I was reading it and I was like, oh, we weren't supposed to be there? Oops.
I thought this was America. Well,
okay,
hang out in the public park to tailgate.
I think it might have been more of maybe some of this as to what could have potentially been in there. Not this is Dr. Pepper, so it's not like there's anything illegal about it. Because if there was, this would be a bad place. This would be a very bad place. But if you see us, say hi. If not, hopefully you can watch the game safely. Whether you're making the trip, if you're driving to Paycor Stadium, have a safe trip up. If you're sitting on your couch and watching, hopefully you got some good food, some good drinks, and can hopefully cheer on the Bengals to a big win because they need it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, can't wait to see you guys at the tailgate. Can't wait to see you guys in the stadium. Houday Megan watching all the way from Sam's place of residence right there.
From my neck of the woods. Now, listen, you got to watch. Megan's got two sons that are killing it on the football field right now. And I've seen some videos. At least one of them. I don't know if both of them play, but one of them, every time I see, I think I see a little Jamar Chase in it. You know, quick, shifty. I love it. And Paul says, drinking in a city park. Yeah, probably not supposed to be allowed. Well,
too bad.
This was America.
We do it already.
Yeah.
I thought it was America.
Yeah, I thought this was America. But we're just one son playing. Yeah, okay. I knew at least one of them played. But yeah, he's doing a great job. Bengals, we're picking both of the teams, the Bengals, to win. We look forward to watching it. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central to break down the Bengals and the Ravens, hopefully bringing up a big win. And then we get to talk Ring of Honor next week as well, because we'll be previewing Bengals-Rams Monday Night Football, big game, White Tiger, and so on. So we look forward to it.
Yep. No, can't wait. Can't wait. It's going to be a great time.
That'll wrap us up for this show. So until next time, for Mick Nelson and Sam Gormley, Hoo day.
Hoo day. Thanks for watching, everyone.